Hello, my name is Rachel. I am coming to you from my yarn room on a very sunny day in late fall. I wanted to film today because I'm still not feeling 100%, but I'm feeling a little bored. And I also wanted to share out some of the projects that I've been able to start since attending Rhinebeck and having such an incredible experience there. I did not go to Will and Folk. I have no idea about the experiences other than what people have posted on social media. Some of the posts have gone a bit extreme. I definitely appreciate the struggles that many vendors had during that particular experience. And I love what some podcasters and other individuals have been doing in terms of providing people a link to different websites where some of the vendors who were negatively impacted could have additional people to reach out to connect, to buy, to foster a long-term buying relationship with that particular person. Me, for example, I was able to connect with three vendors, one of whom I knew was going to be at Rhinebeck, but for some reason couldn't find them. And the other two, I didn't know they were at Willow Folks, so I was able to connect there. So I'm grateful to those different resources that have been provided because of the poor planning Will and Folk. And it is what it is. Like, that happens sometimes. We have one vision and about what we are hoping for an experience. And whenever you're planning an event, you always have to have contingency plans in place. Otherwise, this happens. But that's not the purpose of today's video. The purpose of today's video is dealing with excess. And so I wanted to talk to you all about the numerous projects. I'm just looking around me. The numerous projects in yarn I have accumulated in the last 6 months. I would say since local yarn store day, that has unleashed my yarn purchasing power, and it has given me the opportunity to say, I want this yarn, and why should I feel guilty about buying what it is that I want? Until you are surrounded, I'm going to just bring you with me, with numerous bookshelves of yarn where it's just like, I don't know where to start. And that's where the dilemma lies, where you buy this beautiful yarn. Let me grab one for example. I've always wanted to try knitting for Olive's cotton merino. And again, after local yarn store day, I went to a yarn store near my home and I purchased a sweater quantity of the Dark Orchid, and it's 70% organic cotton and 30% merino. It's a beautiful yarn. It's still sitting there. Now, I purchased this in the early part of the summer. I haven't done anything with it. Another beautiful example. I thought I was going to participate in the Stephen West Make Along shawl. I had bought the pattern, had spent too much time researching and which type of skeins I was going to use. And then I finally decided on a Mungo kit. Really loved it. Got the kit and saw it. I was like, oh, it's beautiful. I kitted it up, was ready to go. Never cast on because I'm not a shawl maker. So why am I trying to make a shawl knowing that that's really just not my cup of tea? I've only made crochet shawls. I made two, and I'm just not a big crochet knitting shawl person. So I was like, okay, I will take some of the fancy yarn, which reminds me I need to bring this back to work. I will take some of the fancy yarn that I purchased, again, after local yarn store day, and crochet a shawl. Well, I started making this beautiful shawl. Now, this is a modification on a triangle shawl by Tony Lipsy. This is I'm not doing exactly what she calls for in a pattern. I think my repeats are slightly different than what she's suggesting that you do. But I really like the outcome. I love the fabric that it's making. I love the lace work that comes. I know the sunlight is playing havoc on my camera, but it's a beautiful yarn. I was influenced to buy it after watching an episode of Needles at the Ready on Trilogy Yarns, and I was like, okay, I'll give them a try. Tried it. Absolutely love the yarn. It's beautiful. And it has been sitting there for a minute, and I've been wanting to do something with it. And I was so happy I finally found the project for it. But then I'm also a big fan, and I'm going to give that to one of my coworkers, and I'm a big fan of knitting something for others. So again, just saying like, okay, dealing with all this new yarn that I have accumulated. And I want to do something for someone else. I don't want to just use some yarn for myself. Excuse me 1 second. I'm sorry. I'm like leaning in. I'm very dry and I'm still not 100%. I developed pneumonia, and I went from having a cold and thinking I just had bronchitis to finding out that I have pneumonia. And today is the first day that I felt like at 70%, but my body still feels really fatigued. I can see in my face I've lost some weight because I just don't have the energy to eat, but I'm on meds. I have the nebulizer. I know my voice still sounds a little sketchy, but that's okay. I'm going to feel better. And by next week, I'm going to be in full on Rachel mode. But I digress. So in keeping up with this conversation about excess, I've also wanted to alleviate some of the guilt I felt about all my yarn purchases. So I decided to cast on a project for my students. I mentioned to you before that I love doing projects for people, especially my students. I have 2 teacher assistants this semester, and I believe I will for next semester as well. And I let them this year pick out. Last year, I usually pick out for them what project that they're going to get for me. But this year, I let them pick. And so after much deliberation, one of my students requested mentioned that she was going to buy this beautiful oversized garter stitch scarf that she saw online. And it's a beautiful, and I saw it, I was like, oh God, that's easy. All it is garter stitch. And so me being who I am, I'm like, well, I just can't simply just buy a garter stitch. I have to, or make a garter stitch. It has to have some element to it. And I started to search on Ravelry. You got to love Ravelry. It will always give you what you're looking for 9 times out of 10. And Pearl Soho's, what is it? Scarf pattern popped up. Now, the name of this pattern, I have no idea. I just immediately saw it and I was like, oh, and I went on the website, saw that it was free, and it calls for a light worsted weight yarn. And I didn't like the fabric that it made, but I did like the mock cable that it did. So it's like a cozy cable scarf, I believe. I believe that's the name of it. And I was like, this will be more ideal for me to do, because with this particular pattern, it allows for me to do the garter stitch, which she clearly likes. She wants it in the color black, which is what I'm doing. And I decided to, instead of going out and buying new yarn, because that's something I typically do, I would go out and buy new yarn, and then I would make the student their item. And what I'm trying to get in the habit of is that I've already purchased a significant amount of yarn. So why don't I go through my yarn stash first, see what I have, go through this beautiful collection of yarn I've accumulated. And if I find something that will be reflective well in the pattern, but also be flattering on whoever I'm making it for, then I can go from there. So I had this yarn that I purchased years ago from Michael's. It's called Wool Like. This yarn is about, depending on what day of the week you go into Michael's, I have seen it being on sale for $1.95 all the way up to $6.95. But what's great about this yarn, it's considered to be super fine, and I would definitely categorize it more as a lace / fingering, light fingering, depending on which skein you have, because sometimes I notice that it's a little thicker with the yarn in itself. But you get 678 yards, and it's 100% acrylic. But this makes a great gift yarn. So if you know you're buying something or making something for someone who may not be very good at the washing and drying, this is definitely your yarn to use, because it's going to allow them to wash and dry and to do all those things. Now, what I love about this yarn is the fact that you get so much yardage, and it is very easy to work with. I made actually a sweater with this skein of yarn. Well, not this exact skein, but with this brand of yarn. But what I'm hoping to do for this particular student's pattern, there seemed to be like a texture to it, and I wanted to add a little bit more softness. And I don't have a ton of this particular yarn, and I didn't want to go out and buy more. So instead, I went searching around, and I forgot I had purchased, again, years ago. This is before the local yarn store day, unleashing. But I went on to Wool Warehouse shortly after I purchased some books from Kim Hargraves, And with that purchase, I decided to buy all the yarn that I would need in order to make every single one of those patterns, because I was feeling guilty about spending $22 on a yarn book, or excuse me, on a knitting book that only had, I think that the one I had purchased had either 18 or 21. It actually has a significant amount of things. But anyway, I felt guilty about it, so I wanted to buy yarn for every single pattern. And I had birthday money for my husband to buy yarn. And so that year, I decided to go on Wool Warehouse and take the birthday money he gave me and to buy a whole bunch of drops. So I bought this Drops Brush Alpaca Silk. And all this beautiful abundant yarn came, and I did absolutely nothing with it. And this has been sitting in my stash since I started to learn how to knit, which is going on 3 years now. So now that I have a better feel for yarn and have a better understanding about the construction of garments, not to say I'm anywhere near as an expert, I still would like to take a class. I should have took the class I was registered for with Hoagie Lucky Telly this summer, but it just didn't fit with my schedule. But nevertheless, I took that yarn and now I'm making this beautiful garter stitch scarf. It's an oversized scarf. You cast on, it's a free pattern. So on Pearl Soho, you cast on 78 stitches and you do a couple inches in garter stitch. And then you do one section of a mock, what is that? I-cord on the edges. And then you do a mock cable. So I'm really enjoying it so far. I literally just started it yesterday. I cast it on and I spent about 30 minutes working on it yesterday. I needed something to do with my hands. I was feeling a little anxious because since I have pneumonia, I can't go into work right now because my body gets a little winded. I got really fatigued this morning just walking downstairs to make myself breakfast. So I'm hopeful that I will be in full recovery mode, but I have been doing a lot of laying down, reading, and resting. I actually got a chance to watch a documentary I wanted to watch for work, so that's good. So getting caught up on my own professional development, just trying to make the best of an unfortunate situation. But anyway, I digress. This was a second opportunity for me to dive into my stash, and I'm so happy I was able to finally find the yarn that's going to make her a beautiful wrap / scarf that I think that she's going to enjoy wearing for the next couple of years. This is her senior year of high school, and my hope is that she'll be able to wear it when she's off in college, wherever it is that she decides to do, or she decides to travel for a little while as well. So in addition to trying to go deeper into my stash and really enjoy what I have, I also have to keep in mind that I purchased a lot of yarn at Rhinebeck, and sometimes when we purchase yarn, we don't always know what we're going to use it for, or we may have one project in mind and we end up doing something else. So while I was Rhinebeck, as I mentioned before, my lovely sister-in-law was kind enough to come with me to hold me accountable so I don't go crazy while I'm shopping. And while we were there, we saw at Mrs. Babs that they had their Rhinebeck yarn. And she fell in love with it instantly. And I wanted to do something nice for her because she took the weekend out to come with me when she really didn't have to. She was such a good sport. And so I wanted to do something special for her. So I purchased the yarn. It was $58. You get, let me get the tag. Here we go. So here's the tag. So it was buying together. And with it, you got 350 yards of Killington, which is 80% Polworth yarn wool, 50% Tussa silk, and that's it. And you're expected to hand wash it. And then you also get a trophy DK, which is 100% blue phase Leicester wool, which was about 260 yards. And so I'm not sure which side is which. I didn't take the time out to look at that. So I'm assuming whichever runs out first, I'll know whichever one it is. But for this particular pattern, I am using my Tunisian crochet hook, and I am making the pattern called Lamea Wrap. I've made this wrap before, where essentially this is another free pattern by Tony Lipsy. But essentially, you do the honeycomb stitch on one side, and then you do the simple Tunisian slip stitch on the other side while increasing on each row. And then it will slowly but surely grow into this like crescent. And then once it reaches the length that you desire, or if you're sticking to the pattern, then you start decreasing and it becomes the other side of the crescent. I love this pattern, which is why when I saw the yarn, I immediately decided to do it, because eventually one side would be purple, the middle will be this, as you can see, it's a color changing yarn. Here, I'll hold it up so you can see. So I'm going to, once I get to the whole middle part, I think I'm going to start decreasing, and then I'd use the rest of it, the purple, and I'll probably do a border with this one as well. Even though the pattern doesn't call for it, I might do something like that. But it's a really easy pattern. And what I love so much about this particular pattern, and I notice this a lot with scarves and shawls, is the fact that you can basically use whichever yarn that you want and needle or hook, as long as you can, the dimensions will meet the expectations that you have for the fabric. And this is definitely meeting it. I am excited about the direction of this particular pattern, and I think I'm gonna keep making it. I had to restart it. I didn't like the way the color change was looking. It was like these little gaps. And so I frogged the entire thing. I had a good chunk of it done, actually, was up here to the middle. I was like, I don't really like the way this looks. And if I'm gifting this to someone, I want it to look like the way I want it to look. So I went ahead and frogged it and I restarted it. And I'm really glad I did that, because now I'm doing it exactly what the pattern calls for. And my stitches, I'm actually using a larger hook because I want it to be more of an oversize. Because when I made it originally, I noticed that it was a little bit, I'm pointing to it because it's on the other side of my room, but I noticed it was a little small, whatnot. But I'll show you what the finished product of that looks like. Give me 1 second. Excuse me. So this is what the finished item looks like. I'm showing you the wrong side. I was like, wait a second. So I made this in all in one color. And the yarn that I used for this was a Lion Brand's yarn. It's discontinued. Oh boy, the name of it escapes me. I hope I wrote it on my Ravelry page, but this was one of their Lion Brand yarn. It's discontinued. It has like a linen cottony feel to it, but I thought it was really beautiful, and I thought it'd be perfect for like for those beachy days when you're at the beach and you just need to, you need just like a quick little cover up, or if you want to wrap it around, because it definitely absorbs water really well. So I'm really am glad that I got a chance to finally do something with that particular yarn, and the Lamana wrap is perfect for it. I had such a wonderful experience Tunisian crocheting that, and will definitely continue to do that. So that's my second gift knit or third gift knit that I'm making, in hopes I'll have that one finished by Christmas. That's my desire for that. My next gift knit I wanted to talk about that, again, allowed me to go stash diving, because once again, earlier in my knitting career, I had purchased a whole bunch of, yarn in hopes to, again, make all of those Kim Hargraves patterns that I just don't have the quite skill set or patience to learn to do. So I bought a sweater quantity of yarn from Knit Picks, and I bought their Brava sport weight yarn, and I love the yarn. I love the color, and I had planned to make a variety of different things with it. And recently, one of my other students, for her gift, she mentioned that she really liked this tank top that I had sent her a picture of, and she's also a knitter. So I bought her I bought in a variety of different yarns I had, and she picked this one. And it's not my favorite yarn to knit with. This is definitely perfect yarn to make like a baby's blanket or a baby's garment. But I was very hesitant about making this top for her in this. But then after talking with one of my fellow knitting buddies, I realized that this is a young person who might have limited access to doing appropriate laundry. And this is a garment that she'll be able to wear as a vest. And then on those, and when she's in New England, she'll be able to wear it for those months where it's a little warm but cool at the same time when the temperature fluctuates. because acrylic can definitely hold its weight. So I'm going to suck it up and let her have the garment in the fabric that she selected. And because I had definitely spent too much time looking in the yarn store, hoping that I would come across another another yarn of similar quality, but for like a super, I would prefer to make this in a super wash, but unfortunately I haven't been able to find anything. So the pattern that I'm making right now with this, that I started last Friday and haven't done anything with it since, because I started to get really sick after last Friday, is the Sailor, yeah, I guess it's called the Sailor Top. It's by Veronica Lindbergh. And what I love so much about the sailor stripe that she did was that the cut of the neck, it's like very fitted, and then it angles down, so it really accentuates this part of your body. And I feel like this is probably one of the most beautiful parts on a human body, whether male or female. I just love this particular area because it's just, I don't know, I just always had a thing for collarbones, and in this particular section. And so it's so flattering, and it fits so perfectly. And personally, I know I want to make one for myself. Actually, recently picked out the yarn that I want to make mine in. And so I tried making the Jessie May version similar, because Jessie May made a similar version to it, but I found that that was just too low, that it showed too much of the side breast area. And so I didn't want to make something like that for one of my students, even though that was the one that she requested. I'm just like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. But with the Sailor stripe top, what I like about that, it's a little bit higher. It's like right at the beginning of your armpit. So even if you're sweat, you don't have to worry about that. And this is also machine washable and dry. And so she'll be able to put it in a washing machine and dry it and not have any issue. So I've started this, and my goal, and I'm using my Knit Pick, not Knit Pick, it's called the Knit Companion, excuse me. I'm going to, I'm using that to help me just keep track of my measurements. So I know that this is definitely a good 3 to 5 day project, because it's definitely not going to take long as well. Once I join in around, you just knit until your desired length. You do an I-cord bind off or a rib bind off. It depends on which one that you prefer, and that's it. And she has you work on what you do for the shoulder and for the arms, excuse me, and for the collar is super simple as well. So it's a really well written pattern, very simple, easy peasy. So I definitely know that I'm going to be able to finish this before the end of the semester and get this to her as her gift. So in my yarn buying haze, I also wanted to support some of those vendors who were dealing with some unfortunate mishaps that happened at Woollen Folk. And one of those vendors is called Yarn Cafe Creations. And they're a yarn store that came into existence in 2016, according to their back. So I went on to their website and I found two beautiful fingering weight yarns. And here it is. So this one is called Snowball. This is Cafe Alette fingering. It's a superwash polyworth yarn. There's 437 yards for every 100 gram, and it's 4-ply. And I gotta tell you, this thing is so soft. I don't want to make just something simple with it. I want to make something luxurious. And I bought the same thing in this mermaid martini espresso fingering. And this one you get 437, and it's a super wash. So the espresso merino, which is also 4-ply, and this is the super wash polyworth merino. And both of them have this little fuzz to it. The twist on it is beautiful. The dye is beautiful. And they're not yarns I would have typically purchased. And I love how they're packaged. So I definitely am tempted to go buy more of this yarn because I definitely like what I saw. In addition to buying the yarn, I also bought 2 Parker's Keepers. So I'm a big fan of Harry Potter. So I bought the Hermione Parker's Keepers. I bought 2 of these. So I had to make something with it. I'm just not quite sure what I'm going to make, but I will figure out something with it. It's just such a nice yarn. It would be hard just to make like a hat or a scarf. Like I want to do something special with it because it really came out nice. In addition, I got influenced when I was on Instagram, and this woman had this beautiful polka dot yarn. I was like, I gotta buy it. So I don't know how to pronounce her name, so I'm not gonna even attempt to do so. But beautiful yarn, well packaged, came in just at the right time. So this is their worsted weight yarn. It's 100 grams for every 200 meters, pure merino, superwash, and it's definitely extra soft. And as you can see, she did a beautiful job hand dyeing this, and you have polka dots throughout. And I didn't know I liked polka dots until I saw this yarn. And then I also got it in fingering weight too. And so both yarns are called kaleidoscope. And so I don't know how well you can see that because of the sunlight, but I love it. It's definitely super soft. And my goal I already knew going in what I was making with this. So with the worsted weight, I'm actually going to make Jason's cashmere hat. With this, I haven't made one in so long. It's been a couple of months, so I'm ready to make another one. And with this, I want to make a pair of gloves with it. Because I haven't made a pair of gloves in a really long time. So that's what I plan to do with both. I wanted to make like a hat glove set for myself. I'm trying to start making some things for myself. One item that I'm still working on for myself is my Rhineback vest, which looks like at this point I'm going to be wearing to Rhineback next year because clearly I did not finish it. So I made some good progress on it. I haven't consistently worked on it. I absolutely love this pattern. I love working on it. It's just that I have all these skiff knits that I'm trying to do. So little but no progress with this. And I'm glad that I didn't go out and go crazy and buying yarn for that particular project. Another project that, again, that I got from yarn, Rhineback, that I'm working on. This is what I mean by excess. I have an excess amount of projects because as you can see, I had the vest, I had the scarf, I had the sailor top, I had the other scarf, I had the shawl. I also cast on the Cloud Lake cardigan. Oh my God, that's my first time taking a deep breath without choking. Oh, I am getting better. So this is a Cloud Peak cardigan by Hoagie Locatelli. And I had a lot of mixed feelings about this particular yarn and the pattern. And then once I started casting it on, I was like, okay. And then I thought, like, once I had got this point, I was like, oh, it's too small. I tried it on with a hoodie actually, and it fit perfectly. And so I'm really excited. This is bare naked wool yarn, and the color that I'm using is their stone soup, and it's so soft. And I keep finding like little specks of like here's one right here, a little bit of the hay that the sheep may have been in, and I am surprised I actually like that. And I'm using mohair with it as well, not necessarily because it needs it, that I just wanted to it to have that same fuzzy halo that I like in my cardigans, because one cardigan I'm making, which I'll get to in a moment, doesn't. So absolutely love this. I have to just continue to do the body, and the way that this pattern is written, it looks like at the bottom is where I'll just start doing the cable pattern. I don't know if you've seen that particular pattern, but it is definitely unique. I'm holding Knitting for Olive's soft silk merino. Their color is ballerina with the yarn, and surprisingly they complement each other so nicely. And I'm sincerely am enjoying this, but this is hibernating for a little while until I finish the project I'm going to talk about in its finality. I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm going to tell you about that one because that's what I want to wrap up with. So as I mentioned before, excess. So in addition to the Cloud Peak, as well as the 4 other patterns I mentioned, I finished the Oslo hat and was like, oh, I need to do another petite knit pattern. And so I'm like, I'm feeling bold, I'm feeling brave. I'm going to cast on the champagne cardigan. And I did. I cast on a champagne cardigan, and with 0 regrets. I need to learn how to weave in my ends as I'm knitting. Just fix this. So this is a champagne cardigan that I cast on quite by accident. I was watching Nora Knits, and she's like, oh, we're going to do something. Which pattern spooks you? And I'm like, the champagne cardigan. I don't know why, but this was like my one. And one night I was like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to take the black yarn I have, because I wanted a black cardigan and I wanted this in black. And I've had every excuse known to man as to why I wouldn't cast this on. So I finally just sucked it up and did it. and I couldn't stop knitting it. This is definitely one of my favorite things to knit right now, and I think it's mostly due to the yarn. The yarn I'm using is Sanders Garn Double Sunday. Love this yarn. I It is definitely a yarn that I will be purchasing in significant amount of quantity in the future. I am really surprised at how beautiful my stitches look, how easy it flows off my fingers. There's no hand fatigue. I spent hours working on that, and to have gotten that far with that cardigan, given the fact that you're going back and forth and purling, and you're also doing short row shaping as well. And I enjoyed every single second of working with that. And this is my reward. So if I can get through some of my gift knits, I'm rewarding myself by working on that. I'm not allowing myself to touch that particular pattern until some of this excess goes down. So speaking of excess, I decided to buy more yarn. And I promise I haven't purchased any more yarn since October 30th, but I bought a sweater quantity of Soella's Townhouse yarn. This is their cashmere sock, 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon. You get 435 yards with it. And the recommended needle size is 2.75 millimeters, which is a US 2, or 2.75 for or USC for a hook. I love it. The color is beautiful. I just can't believe how beautiful it is. Like there's just no, I was so surprised how much I love that yarn. And in addition to buying a sweater quantity of it, because that's 12. I usually buy, when I say sweater quantity, I usually buy at least 1,200 to 1,500 yards of yarn, because that's usually how much it takes for me to make a garment for myself, unless the pattern calls for me to hold it double. I also bought a sock set. Not that I need any more sock sets, and I haven't even dipped into the ones I have. I think I might end up gifting this one, but this is her nylon sock set. It's 80% superwash merino, where you get 400 yards for the main one, and then you get 80 in the mini, and it's beautiful. This particular color is called Apartment, and I love the colorway. I thought it was so gorgeous, and I was like, oh, I have to get it. And what I'm going to make with it, I don't know, but I really liked it. So I decided to buy it for myself. In addition to buying that, I bought some of her hand cream, and I bought her wool wash because I heard really positive things about it. So keeping on with the excess, I keep hearing sounds, but it's nothing. I'm still working on this project that just won't end, the Great Love cardigan. I'm so sick of this project. I just want to be done with it. And I think that's what my focus is going to be for the rest of this month. This is actually when I'm going to end our conversation with today, because I'm starting to get really fatigued. I have all these beautiful projects that surrounded me, including the sweater that I'm making for my sister-in-law, the same one that came with me to Rhinebeck, that I'm making her a scarf. She purchased this yarn herself and commissioned me to make her the weekender. And so that's what I'm doing right now. And initially with this particular sweater, I just didn't like the fabric it was making when you were just doing it straight fingering. So I'm trying it with holding it together with another yarn, and I'm liking the way the fabric looks or feels a little bit better. We live in New England. She actually lives in New Hampshire, where it gets a little bit colder in her neck of the woods, especially the fact that she's surrounded by woods. So it just made more sense for me to try to make it a little thicker, not too thick like the original Weekender, but like a DK version of it, because with my fingering, my gauge is 21 stitches right now. And so that's why I decided, I'm like, you know what, let me hold an additional strand so that way I can make it to the right size, because this already calls for 10 10 centimeters of a positive ease, sorry. So this is definitely flying off the needles. I cast on the hem last weekend. I wasn't feeling well, and I was trying to prove that I was fine. So I sat here in my yarn room. It was either Thursday, Friday, maybe even Saturday. I don't know. I was so out of it. And I was like, I'm going to cast this on. I'm fine. And I'm sweating and sneezing and coughing. And I'm just like, I feel fine, and hacking up a lung. And my husband's like, you don't feel fine. You're sick. I'm like, look, I'm fine. But yeah, I wasn't fine. I'm still not fine, but uh, knitting definitely has calmed me down in terms of that. But nevertheless, I'm making this sweater for her. This is the Weekender Light. This pattern came out almost a year ago now. Maybe it's been a year since it's come out now that I think about it. But nevertheless, she made a light version of the Weekender using fingering weight yarn, or you can use a light DK weight, just depending on your gauge. And I absolutely love it. It's a great pattern, and it definitely flies off of your needles, especially once you get the hem. Once you get the hem done, that's it. Um, Excuse me, how my sister-in-law will wear it is up to her. I'm using, excuse me, I'm using yarn I purchased from Needles at the Ready. I think this is their Dusty Storm, but this is their sock yarn, and I think maybe this one isn't called Dusty Storm. I don't quite remember the name of this one. I think Dusty Storm is the one I used in my stripe height dress, but this is their yarn, Needles at the Ready. It's beautiful, well dyed. The bottom hem of this is what, I don't know how well you can see that, but that's what it's. I know my stitches look a little curvy right there because I wasn't feeling 100% casting on, but I'm hoping that once I wash it and block it, it will smooth itself out. But I love the color changes it made. It's subtle and elegant. It's beautiful, beautiful. And it pairs well with the other yarn that she purchased that's called Cozy Color Work. And so I'm blending both yarns together. I'm doing like 2 rows of it with the yarn I got from Needles at the Ready. And with this, I just think it would add a little bit more substance to it. The bulk of the sweater will be this. But she picked out such a beautiful color, and I'm so excited to knit with it as well. So this is definitely one of those projects that if I have a weekend, I can knock out the body and then the sleeves as well. And so that project is on the needles, up and going, and I'm making steady progress on. But the project that has been my nemesis that I was talking about is this Great Love cardigan. Now, I've been working on this cardigan since July. I started this in July and have consistently worked on it throughout the summer, frothed it twice, and finally got the person who I'm making it for to try it on. Ended up having to frog it again because it was still too small. Stitch pattern wasn't right. I mean, the list goes on about the issues I've had with this particular pattern. And at this point, it's really not about the process anymore or the product. It's just about getting it done because it wasn't this weekend, it must have been last weekend. I was feeling a little bit better. I was loaded up on Dayquil. And so I was like, I'm just going to work on this pattern. Let me see how far I can get, because I've been doing the 45 minutes to an hour frequency. And I found that I was doing pretty well. And excuse me. And I was like, oh, I only have 5 more inches of the body. Then I'll do the pockets and I'm done. And then I did that. I did, because the person I'm making this for is a little bit shorter than me. I did 4.5 inches. Then I started the pockets because it's not going to be the same length on him as it is on me. And so when I tried it on myself, I was like, are you kidding me? There's so much, because I'm a good 4 inches taller than the person I'm making this for. So it has to go to at least my hips when it's done. I was so disappointed to see that I had so much more that I needed to knit, because I just knew that it would be where it needed to be. And I know that this cardigan is going to grow because of the yarn that I'm using, because the yarn I'm using is, she used Lopi, the Nordic Swedish yarn. I think it's not Swedish. It's I know it's like a Nordic yarn, but it's 100% wool, very rustic. And it doesn't grow in the same capacity as this yarn, which is a blend of 2 yarns, the 2 yarns in this particular blend, which I know I've mentioned before, but it is a blend of superfine alpaca and which is 50%, and then 50% Peruvian wool. And this is by Barocco. and ultra alpaca. And I've been having the yarn, it's not the yarn, it's not the pattern, it's just doesn't end. And I love the construction of this. I love the fact that you start with the collar and then you build the whole sweater around the collar. I think it's genius. I'm just tired of working on it. It feels excessive to constantly have to work on the same pattern. So my hope is that by November 30th, I will have this finished. So here I am, surrounded by all my excess projects. And my hope is that once I'm fully recovered from pneumonia, which still mind boggles me, that I can start really working on these. My goal today, because I had some yarn barf with the black scarf, is to knit up all the yarn barf and then do a little bit more. I'm not going to allow myself to work on the Cloud Peak or my champagne cardigan until I finish this Great Love, which is not my Great Love. But that's it. That's all I wanted to share today. Thank you so much for listening and hearing about my current excess. What do you have in excess right now? Is it something on your needles or hooks, or is it your yarn stash? I would love to hear what it is that you are thinking and feeling in regards to all the things that we have accumulated, all the patterns and all the yarns that we are working on, but just don't have enough hands and time to get it done. Reach out. I'm on Instagram. I believe it's Ray23, 2328. And I am also on Ravelry under Ray285. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful day.